Easy. Ladies and gentlemen, let me give you a little piece of advice that could change the way you move through life. Don't tell people your problems. Not because they don't care, some do. But most of them have their own problems, and the rest are just glad yours aren't theirs. Now, that might sound a little harsh, but stay with me. Life is not a complaint desk. The world doesn't pay you for sharing your wounds. It pays you for bringing value. And complaining, that doesn't add value. It just drains your energy and everyone else's. Now, I'm not saying you should bottle everything up. That's not the message. What I'm saying is this: be selective with your pain. Don't broadcast it. Process it, learn from it. Grow through it. Then, when you speak, easy. Speak from experience, not from exhaustion. You see, when you talk about your problems all the time, you reinforce them. Easy. You give them more power than they deserve. You invite them to sit at the table with you when really they belong in the past. People are drawn to strength, to resilience, to clarity. The world opens doors for those who walk with purpose, if ye not those who limp with excuses. If you're going through something, do the work. Read the book. Make the call. Change the habit. Get up earlier. Stay up later. Get your mind right. Let your results speak louder than your story. And if you absolutely need to talk to someone who can help. Not just someone who'll listen and nod. Easy, you need strategy, not sympathy. Sympathy can make you feel better for a moment, but strategy can make you better for a lifetime. Easy. Here's the truth: you're not alone, but you are responsible. You can't hand off your progress. Easy. You can't delegate your breakthrough. So next time you feel like dumping your problems on someone, pause. Ask yourself, easy, am I looking for a solution or just an audience? Because your future doesn't need an audience. It needs a builder. Be that builder. Most people are carrying something heavy: worries, pressures, regrets, fears, and responsibilities. They may smile in public, show up to work, post cheerful updates online, or offer polite nods in passing, but beneath the surface, almost everyone is wrestling with something. It might be money problems, health concerns, a difficult relationship, unfulfilled dreams, or simply the weight of daily life. And in the middle of all that, easy. When someone starts sharing all their problems in detail, most people don't have the capacity or the desire to carry more than they already do. It's not that people are heartless. Some care deeply. But there's a big difference between caring and carrying. Most people barely have the energy to manage their own mess, let alone absorb yours. This is why constantly broadcasting your problems doesn't get you what you're hoping for. People might listen politely the first few times. They might offer some advice, a few kind words, or a nod of understanding. But eventually, if all you offer in conversation is a list of what's wrong, they'll start avoiding the conversation altogether. You see, people are drawn to those who lift the room, not weigh it down. Easy. They remember how you made them feel more than what you said. If every interaction becomes a therapy session where you offload your stress, it creates an imbalance. Over time, people pull back, not necessarily out of cruelty, but self-preservation. They're already under pressure, and your problems become just one more thing they feel powerless to fix. Easy, and let's be honest, when most people ask, "How are you?" They're not asking for a 10 minute report on your life's latest struggle. It's not that they're shallow. It's just that social connection isn't meant to be a constant down low of negativity. If every answer you give is heavy and unfiltered, you turn casual interactions into emotional labor for the other person. That wears people down. It makes them hesitant to ask next time. Think about this when you meet someone who's calm in chaos, easy, who carries themselves with quiet strength, even when things aren't going well. You respect them. You listen. You feel something from their presence. They're not fake. They're just not constantly bleeding all over everyone they meet. That kind of self-control is powerful. It signals maturity. And ironically, those are the people others want to help most. Not because they beg for help, but because they've earned it through dignity and discipline. If you make it your habit to share every frustration, every setback, every injustice you feel, it becomes your identity. Easy, people stop seeing your potential and start seeing your problems. You don't want to be remembered as the person who always had a story about how hard life is. You want to be remembered as the person who handled difficulty with grit, who asked for help when needed, but never made others feel trapped by your pain. So, while it's okay to be real and important to ask for support when necessary, there's a difference between opening up with purpose and leaking pain constantly. Easy, most people aren't equipped to process everything you're feeling. They've got bills to pay, children to raise, aging parents to care for, dreams that feel out of reach. They're not ignoring you. They're just overwhelmed. 2, it's not selfness, it's survival. And understanding that gives you power. Power to choose better moments, better outlets, easy, and better strategies. Because the people around you, for all their kindness, are just trying to stay afloat themselves. Complaining is one of those habits that feels good in the moment, but leaves you worse off in the long run. It gives the illusion of action, like you're doing something about the problem by talking about it. But really, all you're doing is circling the issue without moving an inch forward. The more you complain, the more power you give to the problem. It grows in your mind, takes up more space, and starts to shape the way you see the world. Instead of looking for solutions, you start looking for reasons to be upset. You build a case against life, and before long, it becomes your default setting. When you constantly speak about what's wrong, you condition your mind to focus on what's lacking, broken, or unfair. And where your focus goes, your energy flows. Energy is finite. It doesn't regenerate from frustration. It regenerates from clarity, purpose, and action. Easy, every moment spent complaining is a moment stolen from problem solving, planning, creating, or healing. It's like putting gas in a car that's in park. The engine's running, but you're not going anywhere. People often confuse venting with release, but the truth is, most venting is just rehearsing pain. You say it once, it bothers you. You say it 10 times, it owns you. The brain doesn't know the difference between experience and imagination when emotions are involved. So when you keep repeating your complaints, you're not just expressing them, you're reliving them. That keeps the emotional wound open and fresh. Instead of healing, you reinforce the frustration. You turn a moment into a mindset. Another problem with constant complaining is that it attracts more of the same. Complainers find each other They gather in corners, in break rooms, in comment sections. They feed off each other's dissatisfaction. And while there's a strange comfort in being validated by someone else's bitterness, it creates a toxic cycle. No one holds each other accountable for progress. They just co-sign the misery. Misery loves company. Easy, but it rarely pays the rent or moves you closer to your goals. People who spend their energy complaining tend to miss opportunities. They're so focused on what's going wrong that they don't notice what's still possible. Easy, they talk themselves out of solutions before even trying. They blame, point fingers, and expect circumstances to change before they do. But growth never comes from waiting. It comes from doing. Easy, and you can't do much when your mouth is busy listing excuses or problems. On top of that, chronic complaining pushes people away. Others may be kind and patient at first, but over time they start to withdraw. Why? Because being around negativity is draining. It pulls down the emotional temperature of the room. No one wants to feel like every conversation is a therapy session or a grievance report. People gravitate toward those who uplift, not those who bring the storm. When you complain often, you also start to lose credibility. Even when you have a valid concern, people stop listening. They assume it's just more of the same. You become noise. And that's a shame. Easy. Because sometimes you might actually need support, but you've trained others to tune you out. Complaining doesn't fix the problem. It just broadcasts it. Action fixes the problem. A plan, a decision, easy, a change in mindset, those are the things that shift reality. Silence, reflection, and strategy are often more powerful than words. So instead of saying, "This isn't fair," try asking, "What can I do?" Instead of repeating what's wrong, start focusing on what's within your control. It's not about ignoring pain or pretending everything is fine. It's about choosing where to place your energy. And energy spent complaining is energy you never get back. There's a certain power and restraint, easy, in choosing not to let the world see your every wound while it's still bleeding. Speaking from struggle is easy. It pours out raw and unfiltered, fueled by frustration, sadness, or fear. But speaking from strength requires time. It means you've taken what hurt you and turned it into wisdom. It means you've processed the storm, and now you're teaching from the calm. That's the voice people respect. Not the person still tangled in their pain, but the one who made it through and now stands tall enough to guide others. Everyone has struggles. Life is hard for all of us in different ways. But there's a difference between sharing to help and sharing to unload. When you speak from the middle of your pain, it often comes out as emotional noise, rushed, unfiltered, and sometimes unfair. It's not your fault. It's the nature of being human. But when you speak from strength, you've given yourself space to reflect. You've separated the emotion from the lesson. Now, instead of reacting, you're responding. Instead of venting, you're offering insight. It's not about being fake or pretending everything is fine when it isn't. It's about timing and intention. Speaking from strength doesn't mean hiding your scars. It means showing them after they've healed. That way, people don't just see what you went through. They see what's possible. They see resilience, not just pain. They hear clarity, not just chaos. And they're far more likely to listen, learn, and lean in When you lead with your struggle, people may sympathize, but they also worry. They question your stability, your decision-making, your reliability. But when you lead with what you've learned, people trust you. They hear your story, and it gives them courage because they know you've walked through the fire and lived to tell the tale with composure. That's the difference. Struggle cries out. Strength teaches. And there's nothing more valuable than someone who can turn past pain into current purpose. But let's be honest, it's tempting to speak too soon. Pain wants an audience. It wants to be seen and heard and validated. And sometimes that's necessary. But not every room is the right place for that. Not every conversation should be a confessional. Choose your moments. Choose your listeners. There are places for open expression, close friends, counselors, a journal. But when you're standing in front of the world, or leading others, or trying to inspire change, your message will land more powerfully if it comes from reflection, not reaction. The truth is, people are looking for examples. They want proof that hard times can be survived. Easy. They want to hear that it's possible to go through darkness and still come out with your dignity intact. Easy. That kind of hope doesn't come from someone still unraveling in public. It comes from someone who unraveled in private, stitched themselves back together, and came back stronger. That's the voice that moves people. Strength doesn't mean perfection. It means progress. It means you've done the work to understand what happened and what it taught you. So when you speak, you're not repeating your pain. You're revealing your growth. You're not fishing for comfort. You're offering perspective. People respect what's been tested. They listen when they know your words come from experience, not theory. So take your time. Heal first. The world needs your voice, but more than that, it needs your strength. Easy, and that only comes from the other side of struggle. When life hits hard, it's natural to want comfort. You want someone to look you in the eye and say, I understand, that's awful. You didn't deserve that. And for a moment, that sympathy feels like a warm blanket. It wraps around your pain and gives you permission to feel it. But the truth is, sympathy has a limit. It doesn't fix what's broken. It doesn't pay the bills, restore a relationship, or rebuild your confidence. At some point, the comfort fades, and you're left facing the same problem as before, unchanged, resolved, still waiting for something to shift. That's why solutions are more valuable than sympathy. Because only solutions have the power to move you forward. Sympathy, while well-intentioned, is passive. It acknowledges the pain, but it doesn't challenge it. It allows the wound to stay open under the excuse of compassion. A solution, on the other hand, demands something from you. It calls you out of your emotion and into your responsibility. It requires action, adjustment, easy, or a new perspective. That's why it's harder to accept, because it puts the power back in your hands. But that's also why it works. Sympathy makes you feel seen. Solutions make you stronger. Many people get stuck in cycles of complaining or storytelling because they're chasing that feeling of sympathy. They're not really looking for change. They're looking for comfort. But comfort without change just becomes a crutch. It delays the growth that only comes through facing the hard truths. Sometimes the truth is, yes, what happened wasn't fair. Yes, you were hurt. Yes, someone else may have caused the damage. But now what? What will you do with it? That's the real question. That's the question solutions ask. People often confuse tough love for coldness, but it's not. The friend who says, I hear you, but let's figure this out, is doing more for you than the one who just agrees with your frustration. Solutions are a form of love too, a higher form. They say, I believe you're capable of more than this. I believe your story doesn't end with this setback. And that kind of belief is far more empowering than pity. Pity keeps you in place. Solutions push you forward. It's also important to recognize that most people who succeed aren't the ones who got the most sympathy. Easy, they're the ones who learn to stop depending on it. They asked better questions. They stopped waiting to be rescued and started building their own escape route. They learned that life rewards problem solvers, not problem announcers. That might not seem fair, but it's how the world works. And the sooner you align with that truth, the faster you begin to grow. The real magic happens when you shift your mindset from I need someone to understand to I need to understand how to move past this. Because that shift puts you back in the driver's seat. You're no longer hoping someone else will fix your mess. You're looking for tools, strategies, systems, and steps. That's where real change begins. Sympathy might help you catch your breath, but solutions help you climb the mountain. It's okay to feel pain. It's okay to seek comfort. But don't stay there. Don't set up camp in the land of it's not fair. You don't get stronger by being told it's okay to be weak. You get stronger by deciding that weakness doesn't get the final say. So seek out people who challenge you. Read the books that offer tools, not just validation. Ask the questions that lead to change, not just comfort. Because when all is said and done, progress doesn't come from being understood. It comes from understanding what to do next. Everyone goes through hardship. Everyone carries pain, disappointment, and failure at some point in life. Easy, but the mistake many people make is allowing those problems to become part of their identity. Instead of seeing a problem as a moment, they let it become a label. They say, easy, this always happens to me, or I'm just unlucky, or that's just the way I am. And slowly, their problems stop being something they experienced and start being something they are. But your problems are not your personality. They are events, not definitions. It's easy to get attached to a struggle, especially if it's been with you for a long time. You start to believe it's who you are. If you've faced rejection again and again, you may begin to call yourself unworthy. If you've dealt with failure, you might adopt the label loser or not good enough. If you've lived in survival mode, always fighting to get by, easy, you might convince yourself that's all life has to offer. And that's the danger when your experience starts to rewrite yourself. Concept. But who you are is always bigger than what you've been through. You are not your mistakes, not your losses, not your diagnosis, not your bad decisions. Those things may explain a chapter in your story, but they do not get to become the whole book unless you let them. Easy. You get to decide whether your problems are a weight you drag or a lesson you learn. The problem with allowing issues to define you is that it keeps you stuck. It creates a fixed mindset. If you believe that your identity is anxious, or broke, old, lovable, then you'll unconsciously look for evidence to support that belief. Easy. You'll sabotage opportunities that don't match the story you've been telling yourself. You'll push away progress because it doesn't feel familiar. That's how people stay in cycles for years. Not because change isn't possible, but because they've fused their struggle to their sense of self. And let's be clear, easy. Acknowledging your problem is not the same as identifying with it. It's perfectly healthy to say, I'm dealing with something, or I'm working through this. That's honest. That's real. But it's different than saying, this is who I am. One invites growth. The other locks the door. What makes a person strong is not the absence of problems, but the refusal to be reduced by them. You can lose everything and still not lose yourself. You can go through failure after failure and still decide that you are capable, worthy, and resilient. Easy. Your identity doesn't have to be written by your worst moments. In fact, it shouldn't be. It should be written by the way you respond to those moments, by your discipline, your bounce back, your vision for something better. The truth is, people admire those who rise above, not those who pretend the problem didn't happen, but those who grow beyond it. The people who inspire you aren't the ones who had easy lives. They're the ones who went through pain and chose not to let it define them. They took the hit, they absorbed the lesson, and they kept moving. You have that same power. Your life is not over because you're in a rough season. This isn't the final version of you. This is a process. And if you refuse to let your current problem write your identity, you'll find the strength to create a future that looks nothing like your past. So the question isn't, what have I been through? It's, who do I want to become despite it? That's where the shift happens. That's where real freedom begins. Taking full responsibility for your growth means accepting that no one else is coming to save you. Not your parents, not your boss, not your spouse, not the government, not your friends. Growth is a personal mission. It begins when you stop pointing fingers, stop waiting for circumstances to change, and start saying, this is on me. It doesn't mean everything that happened to you is your fault. It means you're in charge of what happens next. That mindset shift is what separates those who change their lives from those who stay stuck in blame. It's tempting to believe that your environment, your past, or other people are holding you back. And maybe, to some extent, that's true. Life isn't always fair. Some people start with more. Some face harder battles. Easy. But the moment you make growth dependent on those things, you give away your power. You hand over the keys to your potential. The truth is, even if your past sets you up with disadvantages, your future is still yours to build. And no one will do it for you. Responsibility isn't about guilt, it's about ownership. You don't have to take the blame for how you were raised or what you lacked. But you do have to take charge of what you learn, how you show up, and who you become. Growth doesn't happen by accident. It happens through choices, repetition, and discipline. You read the book. You apply the lesson. You reflect on your mistakes. You try again. That's your job. Nobody else can do it for you. No one can change your thinking. No one can do your push-ups. It's easy to look around and think other people are lucky, that their success came from a better start, a lucky break, or outside support. But if you sat down with them, you'd probably hear about early mornings, painful failures, brutal lessons, and relentless self-work. That's the stuff most people don't post online. That's what's behind the curtain. And all of that takes responsibility, saying, I may not know everything, but I can learn, or I may not feel ready. Easy, but I'll start anyway. The problem is, many people want growth without responsibility. They want to feel better without changing anything. They want success without sacrifice, confidence without discomfort, peace without discipline. But it doesn't work that way. You don't become more by doing less. Growth costs something. Easy. It costs your ego, your comfort, your excuses, your old story. And when you take responsibility, you accept that cost willingly. You say, I'm not going to wait for the perfect moment or perfect help. I'll figure it out. I'll find a way. The beauty of responsibility is that it sets you free. Once you own your growth, you stop waiting for permission. You stop needing approval. You stop being a victim of your circumstances. You start building momentum. You start making decisions based on who you're becoming, not what you've been through. You start seeing challenges as invitations to grow, not punishments to endure. Every successful person, every fulfilled person, every wise person you admire made that same decision at some point. They looked at their life and said, enough. I'm taking the wheel. They didn't wait until everything felt right. They took action in uncertainty. They learned along the way. And that's exactly how it works. You don't grow by waiting. You grow by working on yourself even when it's inconvenient, scary, or slow. So whatever you want, more confidence, better health, stronger relationships, financial stability, it starts with you. Not someday, not when you feel ready, right now. Because responsibility isn't a burden, it's your greatest tool. The more you use it, the more power you gain. The more power you gain, the more your life begins to reflect the person you were meant to become.